Bubble, bubble, toilet trouble. Salem speak. Nope, he's gotta go. And welcome to the Ruby Tuesday. My name is Ruben, and this is my review for Season 3 or Part 3 of The Chilling Adventures of Sabrina, a Netflix original series. If you're a fan of Sabrina, the original series, you'll know by now that this isn't like that. It's based off the comics. And if you've been following Part 1 and Part 2, then you'll know that Part 2 ended on a big cliffhanger.
What is it you want from me?
That kind of sorts itself out pretty quickly in episode 1. There are only 8 episodes this season. I feel like we're losing content with each part. Each episode is about an hour long. And I have to say, I enjoyed it, but I enjoyed the second half more because the first 4 episodes kind of center around an arc that we've been following along. So even though they sort out the big kind of cliffhanger, they're still following these threads of the Dark Lord and what's going on in hell and kind of that storyline. And I like it, but it's been done and they needed to go somewhere else. I'm happy to say that with what happens in the second half of Part 3 is very interesting and is very bingeable. The second half flows much quicker. It made me much more interested in what's happening with the characters. So where the first 2 parts have really been on kind of figuring out who those characters are, what 16-year-old Sabrina is like and her friends and the abilities they have and the different kind of relationships and identities of these characters on both the school life and both the other witchy school life. They've really kind of grown those characters for the first 2 parts. This time it really feels like they've gone for arc in the 8 episodes. There's very little character development in these 8 episodes. It's more on story arc and plot development, which is great because sometimes these series can really take its time getting going or really drag out plots in series. I think it's a lot of fun. Like I said, I really like the second half and what they did with it. Feels fresh, feels different, feels new. If you like the horror aspect of the particular episodes that you got in Part 1 and 2, I have to say there wasn't much scary in that. They've kind of toned that down. Although the monster creations and the prosthetics in this are fantastic and very good, at the same time, when we are in hell, and I'm trying not to do spoilers, but there are hell sequences like there have been in Part 1 and 2, the prosthetics for the monsters that you see are fantastic, but they're very pantomime. It's one of the issues I've had with this entire season, really. It feels like it's an adult show, but for a younger generation, if that makes sense. So the stuff that you have in it is very adult, very gory, very monstrous. Even the content or the situations that the teenagers and adults have to deal with is very adult in its content, but sometimes the way it's filmed or the way it's shown is very young. So for example, the way a monster will react or talk, or a hell lord or whatever is happening on screen at that time feels very childlike. My wife walked in one particular episode and she was like, wow, that reminds me of a Power Ranger bad guy. You know, the way they used to express themselves. They're like, I'll get you next time, Rangers. Yes, I like. Yes, I like. It's that sort of campiness that I've had a bit of issues in the past, but it feels like it's more prominent this time round. That's not to say it's not enjoyable. It is fun. I like the set designs, but it also screams set design in some of the sets, the new sets that you'll see. I feel like, well, that shouts sets and even looks like sets. The prosthetic works and the designs are all very cool. And I like the arc and story of what they've done with the characters. And some of the stuff you won't see coming, which is nice because when you've been watching so many fantasy series or just TV in general, a lot of the time you can guess what's going to happen. This time around, there were a few plot points and emotional markers that I didn't see coming, and I thought that was really great. It's great to see it fresh, I guess, unless you've been following along in the comics. I don't know if that correlates to it, but if you're like me and haven't read the comics, then you're probably going to enjoy this. I'm liking what they've done with the character of Sabrina, and I think again she brings what you expect from this character. She's kind of her own character now. She's cemented in who she is. We kind of know what we're going to get from her. At the same time, the stars of the show for me have always been Hilda and Zelda. I think their character arcs are very interesting. They're so kind of diametrically opposed. They're so different to each other, but they work so well as a family unit. And I think when the story revolves around the Spellmans their story is very interesting. At the same time, there are some side storylines or side characters that I found very interesting to follow along this time, and I thought that was almost more interesting than the Spellman storyline, the kind of side storylines that again meet up a little bit later on. I think the way this one ends is very exciting. It's one of those series that when you get to the end of each part, you're like, I really want to know what happens in the next part. And this for me is that classic moment where you go, why can't you just tell that story? Because the story that's coming looks like it's going to be very interesting, very exciting. Obviously, they're designed that way. They're written that way because they want you wanting more. Want to keep the audience wanting more. And they've done that, which is great. So, although it takes a few episodes to get into, the new storyline, the new arc, the new characters are very interesting to watch. The new actors that are in this part 3, are very good as well. I don't think anybody is a weak link. I enjoyed all the characters and the kind of recurring characters that we get as well. Man, this is difficult to do without spoilers, but there's some characters that have appeared in part 1 and 2 without going into spoilers that are back for part 3. It was very interesting to see how they dealt with that. I love the way you are always confronted with how far would you go to protect your family, what is right and wrong, and who's right is right and who's wrong is wrong. It's this theme that gets you to ask in Sabrina as well as just having fun. You know, these guys are worshipping Satan, and we know that's bad. But then if they realize who that Satan has been manipulating, go figure, them this whole time, who do they worship and what should they worship? And so they're in this kind of manipulative world. They're in this kind of flux of what they should do and where their power should hail from, the coven, Sabrina's coven and the aunts, and so they're having to find themselves again. And that's another interesting theme that goes along in this. I could talk about this series part 3 for ages because I think there's a lot going on. There's actually quite a few plot lines and stories and themes that are going on with people. It's very interesting because they can just go for it now that they've kind of allowed us to see in the part 1 and 2 who these characters are. We know about them, we have some backstory, so they've just gone for it. I think it's interesting, and I really feel like this part has found its feet, although it took its time to get there. So let me know in the comments below if you are interested in watching part 3. We know we're getting part 4. I'm not sure we're going to get more after that, but it's doing quite well. It has a fan base, obviously. Are you a fan of this series? I know a lot of people have also said that this is just a woke series. I think you need to get over that. If that's the sort of thing that offends you, well, then you probably won't enjoy this. I'm going to give this a B-. I think it's solid, but I think it could have been better. But that's just my opinion. I've never made a TV series. I've only worked on films and short films. So that's as far as my expertise goes. But from that point of view, let me know what you thought about this in the comments below. Did you find it interesting? Are you looking forward to it? Thanks so much for watching this review. But most of all, until next time, remember, live long and Tuesday.